everybody, and welcome back to the Dimes and Buckets podcast presented by the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk. We had a bit of a hiatus, but we navigate ourselves through the Olympics. Took a bit of time off on the podcast, like it's in the way. NBA season is now here and in full force. And joining us to talk about that and the early returns for the NBA season are Greg and Rach. Back by popular demand. Greg already shooting, putting a shot across the bow of the Lakers already. Topics we'll get on to. Typical Clippers fan, of course, is Greg. But how are you guys doing before we get into it? It's been a minute. How have things been? How are things in the UK?
Yeah, not bad. I think last time you spoke to us, we were sort of in the cusp of just coming out of, I think we were all in the cusp, just sort of coming out of lockdown. And now we're not there at all now. It seems like we're going to get a normal Christmas and everything. Fingers crossed. So, yeah, good.
Awesome. How about you, Rach? How's things?
Yeah, things are all right. You know, just living life. I'm hoping to go over to Dublin for Christmas to see my family. But they're in a bit of a crappy situation over there in Ireland, I think. So I'm hoping that the travel won't be affected because if you're double vaccinated, it shouldn't matter. But hopefully I get over to see my family. So, yeah, just looking forward to it, really.
Just the minor thing of you getting engaged since we last spoke about
basketball.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations on that terrific news. Hopefully everything pans out for your trip. It looks like we're starting to navigate our way out of this world pandemic, which is fantastic. Things starting to return to normal a bit. First comment in, Andy. Thanks, mate. I know you're a regular contributor. Back when the podcast was in full flow. So thanks again for chiming in. Get your questions and comments, folks, in on the new NBA season. Your observations as we pull the topics up. We want to hear from you as well. Let's get to it. So, as we said, new season upon us. Lots going on. Obviously, when you look at some of the things that have taken place so far, maybe some teams that we thought might hit the ground running that haven't. A lot of the Lakers, the Bucks have struggled a bit. The Nets starting to turn things around a little bit, but certainly the Kyrie Irving situation has impacted them. But then when you look at the standings and you look at Phoenix on that tremendous undefeated run with double-digit wins, you look at the Wizards, some of these other teams in the league that are starting to, obviously Golden State and what Steph Curry is doing there. They don't even have Klay Thompson back yet. So how is that going to, elevate them when he comes back? Greg, I'll come to you first, mate. What are your early sort of takeaways from the new NBA season in terms of who's a contender and who's a pretender?
I think it's hard to look past Golden State. Like, this feels so much like the sort of 2015 season, when they just sort of took the league by storm and they were doubted the whole way. But if the way Steph's playing just now, if he can continue playing like that for the length of time until Klay gets back, and if Klay comes back even sort of 60-70% of what we know Klay Thompson is, they're going to be a ridiculous team. Like Steph Curry right now he's just gone up another level, sort of it from where he was last year. Obviously, he had the hard job of sort of carrying that team with a horrible record, a young team. It looked last year like they'd maybe messed up the draft slightly, like they went young with James Wiseman, but then didn't tank, and it was really confused sort of how they did it. But it looks like they're sort of being justified in that now. Like, Steph's playing so well, the team seems to be running well as well. They're getting the wins, they're winning big games, and I can't, with the Lakers being sort of how as bad as they are, I can't see anyone really challenging them for the West if they continue to. If they can stay healthy, I don't think there's anyone that can challenge them for the West, because the teams that were up there last year, we know they've got big players that are long-term injured.
Greg makes a good point there in terms of with Golden State. They almost look last year like they were heading towards a rebuild, and in some senses they still look like they're in a quasi rebuild. But within that quasi rebuild, what they're doing, I mean, obviously 13-2. Just ridiculous. Steph's playing well. He's got everybody playing around him well. Andrew Wiggins, Canadian, playing well. And then, like Greg touched on, when they get back Klay, we saw what that meant to the Nets last year with Kevin Durant being off, coming back and maybe needing some time to get himself healthy and get himself sort of game fit. But then what he was able to do in the playoffs, or is it just is Golden State the early contender here? And then particularly when you add Clay into that, does that just put them over the top?
I think it's hard to look past them at the moment because their record it's quite astounding, really. They're not just winning games, they're really winning games. Like, they're absolutely breezing past almost everyone. And like you said, that they're only at 70% now, and obviously we're still very, very early in the season and a lot could happen. But Steph Curry just looks like a massive contender for early MVP because he's just dropping absolute masterclasses here, there, and everywhere. He looks like he's massively upped his game. And fair play to him, because we all know he's always been a good player. He's always been an amazing basketball player. But he just looks like he's massively just taken that one step further. And yeah, he's absolutely smashing it. But it's hard to look past the Warriors. And they look incredibly strong. Last year, obviously, was not as great. It was kind of below the ground. But yeah, they look really, really strong. And when you put Clay back into the fold, you know, the only thing I have with a massive player coming back in like that is, will it disrupt the flow of what they're already in?
Good point.
I know. Yeah. So obviously he's great player, no doubt about him. Will he make the Warriors stronger? Absolutely, because there's more options there. But you know, you liken it to they're really hitting the ground running right now. They're in their flow at the moment. So bringing Clay back, will that disrupt them a little bit? Probably not. They're probably just gonna, you know, breeze everyone out. But it could happen. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, you look at the amount of basketball that the Warriors had played up to the NBA Finals with the that the Raptors won, of course, and championship hat in the back corner there. But of course,
long time ago,
we started to see the injuries rack up for them with Durant, Clay, obviously the unfortunate ACL injury and the rehab that he's gone through. But that rest that those players got, Curry, of course, injured coming back towards the end of last season. You've now got these two tremendous, the Splash Brothers, who have like a season and a half of rest under their belt. Is that just going to benefit them? It seemed like up until the final in 2019 that they were just, you could just tell that those long playoff runs had just taken their toll. But they just seem to be rolling back the years. I mean, it's a blessing in disguise, maybe, with the injuries, that they've been able to get that time of that resting time and sort of rejuvenate their careers as they age. Right. So Golden State, obviously, we know what they're all about. Phoenix, a team that sort of got off to the season a bit of a slower start, but then they put together that 10 straight wins. You know, we were wondering would they have a finals hangover? You know, would they be able to recapture that same form that they had last season? And again, Phoenix Suns just, you know, right there, game and a half back of the Warriors, who we've talked about have been tremendous. But are the Suns a contender for you guys this season? Do you think they'll fall off? Do you see them as a team that can get back to the NBA Finals with Devin Booker and Chris Paul leading the charge?
If everyone else is as unhealthy as last year, then yeah. And the two teams that made the finals last year made the finals because of the injuries to the better teams that were there. Not that they didn't play well and they were there and we got a good final series and stuff, but if there's a fit Lakers, fit Clippers, fit anyone really, you get a different finals there. And Phoenix will be thereabouts. They've got a strong team. They obviously believe in what the coach is doing. You've got Chris Paul there, who's a leader, regardless of sort of his age and the effect he has on the team. And then you've got Devin Booker's obviously getting better and better, and he's learning every week and every game from Chris Paul. So the team will continue to get better, and they'll continue to be on this sort of level. But I think that team has a ceiling. I just think it's got a ceiling. I don't think they have sort of what the Warriors have, what the Lakers have when fully fit, what the Clippers have, what the Nets have, especially. That depth and everything in every position, I think, is what you probably need to be successful consistently. And I don't think Phoenix have that. They might be up there, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like, if you told me they made the finals, I wouldn't be surprised. But if you told me they went out in the first round, I also wouldn't be surprised. Like, it doesn't shock me either way.
Right. Rich, we switch gears to the East, and you look at Miami 11-5, Brooklyn 11-5, Chicago 10-5, started off the season really well, but have maybe regulated themselves or come back down to earth a bit. I think everyone's sort of eyes will immediately shift to the Brooklyn Nets as the team in the East that would be able to, I mean, obviously you've got the Milwaukee Bucks, which we'll get to, having a bit of a hangover, 7-8 in 10th place. I don't think they'll stay there. But in terms of, you look at what Kevin Durant was able to do last year in the playoffs and almost drag the Nets into the finals by himself. With everything that's going on there, with Kyrie Irving sitting out, obviously because of COVID protocols and not being vaccinated, do you feel as though James Harden, a healthy James Harden and a healthy Kevin Durant are enough for the Nets to get themselves into the finals and topple the Bucks? Would you consider the Nets as a legitimate contender based on everything that's going on with them this season?
I think they'll go through like kind of peaks and troughs. So I think they'll have periods where they have this long spell of really good form and, you know, James and absolutely just knocking it down. But I do think they'll fall off because it's not sustainable just relying on these two fit, healthy guys all season. They're going to be injured. They're going to have to sit out at some point. There's going to have to be rotation there.
Yeah, it's tough to see them staying healthy. You're right.
Exactly. Especially when they're under so much immense pressure. And I think their slow start to the season was a little bit, obviously, because of the disruption to Kyrie and all the kind of media drama that went on with, obviously, the COVID stuff and what's still going on. But I do think they'll fall off. I think they'll be there or thereabouts, but I don't think they're contenders for the championship this season, at least, because of everything that's going on. And I just don't think they're there, but still a very, very strong team, obviously. But I think they'll be kind of middle of the ground, maybe 5-6 seed, you know.
Is there anybody else in the East, guys, that you see? I mean, outside, we know the Bucks, and we'll talk about sort of what's going on with them later in the show in terms of their sort of early hangover. But you know, you look at Miami, obviously bringing in the likes of Kyle Lowry, and you know, I know, Rach, it hurts me too. But you know what the funny part is? It's
not funny.
And Rachel get this, is that for the last, like, how many years the Raptors fans have been all over Twitter about how great Kyle Lowry is, how much of a difference he makes. And all of a sudden he shows up in Miami. Miami's 11-5, you know, Bam and Jimmy, they're running the floor. Kyle's headmanning the ball and getting everywhere their points. And all the Miami fans are going, this is what we missed. We missed Kyle Lowry. He's phenomenal. Like, look what he's doing for our team. Yeah, we know. We get it. We've been telling you on Twitter for how many years, if you just listen to us. But anyway, you look at what Miami's doing. You know, a lot of the pundits had them as a top 4 team, obviously sitting top of the East. Is there anybody else, Greg, you see in the East that outside of the Bucks and the Nets that could possibly provide or be an early contender? Or would you say that you know, it's sort of a false position, if you will, or pretender for those teams to be at the top of the East?
I think Miami will be good, but again, I think they'll have the issue with staying healthy. I think Tyler Hero will drop off at some point. He goes through sort of cold spells, and his cold spells seem to last sort of 8, 9, 10, 11 games, not sort of 3 or 4 games. And he's more than just a shooter as well. So when he struggles, they find it hard to facilitate. So maybe that was another reason to bring in Lowry. Is obviously Lowry can be that work in the half court. But I really like the Bulls. I've watched 3 Bulls games this year, and they're good fun. They're good to watch. Like, Lonzo's really good, surprisingly. Like, New Orleans should have paid. Yeah, DeRozan as well, but New Orleans should have paid Lonzo 100%. Whatever sort of whatever he wanted. DeRozan's playing the best basketball of his career.
Yeah.
And they're just a fun team to watch. They're good. DeRozan's never had that many good players around him all at once. So you can really see sort of why he's playing as good as he is, because suddenly he looks up and he's got, wow, players that are really capable. And he's not effectively a second string unit, which is what it looked like at some points. And yeah, I just think I don't know if they're a contender, but they're good fun, and I hope they are. It'd be great. It would be great to see. It'd be nice to see Lonzo. I would just nice to see Lonzo's decision to be justified, taking that bet on himself to not take that contract from New Orleans and to say that he got out of the franchise and it would be nice, and it'd be nice to see the Bills, like a big historic team, sort of back up there and challenge him, because they went from so they were sort of a laughingstock a couple of years ago, and then they're just they bought three ex-All-Stars and this is how you build a good basketball team, which is pretty much how you build a good basketball team. You just buy the best players, and they're showing that.
It's a good shout, mate, for sure. Well, moving on to what's going on with the Lakers. What is going on with the Lakers? So the Lakers basically liquidate their depth in the offseason, bring in Russell Westbrook to kind of create their own big three with Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and Russ. And the wheels, or early returns, the wheels have sort of fallen off here at the start with LeBron injuries. I mean, we've seen this over the last couple of seasons now with injuries starting to, is it father time, starting to creep up on LeBron, and injuries starting to take place. Anthony Davis, for me, just he's not that type of player that can, all of a sudden take the reins and lead you. And neither is Russ Westbrook for me. But Rachel, come to you first. I mean, you look at what's going on with the Lakers. They haven't played well. They've played 16 home games, or 12 of their 16 home games, have been at home a few days ago, and they had like a 500 record. So they're not capitalizing on playing at the Staples Center, which is early in the season. You look how many home games they've had. Like you should be capitalizing on that and winning those home games. You look at, Westbrook's numbers haven't been great. He hasn't been able to carry the load himself. Anthony Davis has missed a few games through injury as well. 8-8 at this point. Like I said, 12 games at home. Are the Lakers a bust this season, or do you think that they'll come good maybe when LeBron comes back, if he can sort of steady the ship a bit? Or do we expect LeBron, like how much of is LeBron going to be playing many games in the regular season, or are they just hoping, let's just get into the playoffs and see what happens from that point?
The Lakers is a hard one, because obviously the Lakers are the Lakers. You always expect them to be there or thereabouts. But this season's been really underwhelming, so inconsistent. They've just been not great. I know they've had like injuries to, AD, and you've also had injuries to Bron as well. Yeah. But Russell Westbrook, he's not doing what he should be doing. He's not there in his shooting wise. He's not there in assisting where he should be. And I read that he also, I think I was talking to Anna about this earlier today, because we were just talking about the Lakers and basketball, because I don't watch much of the Western
it's tough for you guys with the time difference.
Yeah, it's at 4 a.m. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I struggle sometimes to watch the Raptors. Like I stay until I think most of the games when they're on the East are on at about 12:30 for us. Yeah. So I'll kind of power through, and it'll finish at about 2:30, 3 o'clock. I just get some sleep. But this Western road trip has really messed me up. But I read that he actually leads the league in turnovers.
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook, and that's not great at all.
It's not a recipe for success, is it?
It's not really. You kind of need to eradicate that a little bit. The Lakers as well, when they get these high leads, the decision for rotation kind of bites them in the ass, if you will, because then they blow those massive leads. And I mean, they go long periods without scoring at all. I mean, Anna reminded me earlier of that 50-12 run that they went on against, I think it was Minnesota. And it's like, wow, shocking. And I was talking about it there. I'm not happy at all. But AD's good, but I have to be careful what I say, because she will beat me up if I say anything bad about AD, because she absolutely loves him. But AD's good, but he's not your number one. He's not there yet, at least.
He's never going to be.
He just seems like I watched the Milwaukee Lakers game of the night, and you watch what Giannis did against DeAndre Ayton last year in the playoffs, and then you watch like AD should be that player that's, when they're working out, who they're going to guard, and like AD's obviously going to guard Giannis, and you're like, okay, AD, like we need you really to get into Giannis. We need you to bully him, and he just didn't look up for it. He just looked like he didn't want any part of Giannis in that game, and Yeah, I agree with you. I think AD is a terrific player, but I don't think he's the type of player that is going to really take that team and when LeBron is missing and fill that leadership role. And we know Russell Westbrook isn't that player. So then who does it? I mean, Greg, you look at what the Lakers did in the offseason, the depth that they got rid of, and Kyle Kuzma, Alex Caruso. I thought Alex Caruso for me is a big miss for them. Tremendous defender. I think a lot of eyebrows were raised when they got rid of him. And you look at the players that are filling those minutes in Austin Reeves and Wayne Ellington. I mean, two players that really they're playing 20 plus minutes a game. I think Austin Reeves played 26 minutes of the night for them, players that shouldn't be playing in these games, but it's just because of the lack of depth this team has, that when you lose a player like LeBron James and when AD does have to sit out, because they're older for load management or for injuries or whatever it is, you don't have the same amount of depth that you had a year ago. Is that something that's really going to come back and bite them? I mean, you can rest the big three all you want and get them ready for the playoffs, but you got to get there. You have to get into the top six. And I'm sure that they want to get into that top six and not get into the play-in games, because anything can happen in a one game scenario. So, when you look at the Lakers' depth, is that a huge miss for them? Did they give up too much in the offseason to try to make this happen?
I think his laptop's frozen.
I think he's frozen, but I'll bring that to you, Rach. So, yeah. What do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think strength in depth is massive, especially in basketball, because you can't have, we were just talking about it with the Nets. You can't have your two main people that kind of put up the points. You have to have that depth, which is what they gave up. So I think, yeah, it's not looking great for them this season, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, like I said, Bron's back tonight, so you never know. Might win a game.
How about yourself, Greg? I'll bring it back to you too. We were just commenting on the amount of depth that the Lakers gave up to make this happen with Caruso and Kuzma, and you look at the moves they made to make the big three happen. Is that going to come back and bite them in terms of even getting into a top six position?
It could do.
Or is it too early to say that?
No, it could do. They made the Wizards much better team by getting rid of Russell Westbrook, the same way that every other team that Russell Westbrook has left in the last decade has got better after he left. He doesn't make teams better. He makes himself look better, and he doesn't improve the team. He'll never be the reason that teams win games or win championships. He'll never make that difference. They went and got him because he could sort of facilitate when LeBron wasn't there, but now he's shown he can't even do that. And you see KCP and Harrell, and like you said, Kuzma, all out there now, really playing good minutes, not playing rotation anymore for the Lakers, playing good minutes a lot of the time, and making a real difference on both ends of the court, not just facilitating. I think it was. I said at the time when they happened that it was never going to. I didn't think it was ever going to work. I didn't think Westbrook was going to fit what they wanted to do. I didn't think he was going to help LeBron. And yeah, he's just made himself look worse, and the Lakers look. It makes the trade look silly, because you look at all these guys that are out there making a big difference on their teams, and Westbrook's really hindering the Lakers.
Well, as Anna says here, LeBron back today. We shall see. Absolutely. LeBron's a difference maker. There's no doubt about it. So, if he can come back and sort of, get the offense taken over and cut down on some of the turnovers, because that's going to be the big thing for me is, Russ is the type of player who wants the ball. LeBron's the type of player that wants the ball. So is there going to be enough touches for both of these players to coexist on the floor at the same time and really make the impact that the Lakers want? Of course, Taylor Horton-Tucker having a great season as well. He was a player that was mentioned in the trade talks last season for Kyle Lowry. The Lakers were unwilling to part with him, and certainly Kyle Lowry is maybe a player that could have made a difference for them right now. So we shall see. Andy in with a comment as well. Lakers probably should have kept players like Caruso. Yeah, touched on his defense, perimeter defense, really good. Just a smart defender. his help side defense is really good as well. So a player I think that they really, really miss. Greg's Wi-Fi is performing as about as well as the Lakers right now as well. But Rach and I will move on to the Ben Simmons saga. And Rach, this is one that just keeps dragging on and on and on and on. Ben Simmons currently not playing, indicating that his mental health isn't well enough for him to play. The Sixers trying to get more information about from his doctors regarding his mental health situation. Ben Simmons obviously not wanting to give them that information. Daryl Morey holding out for the Sixers GM holding out for a all-star type player, hoping that they can get somebody back in return. Rach, this seems like it's just one big mess. I mean, the Sixers started off, had a good season. Started off well the season, Embiid's been injured. They've had other injuries that have popped up. Currently, went through a 5-game losing streak. What's your take on the Ben Simmons situation? I mean, surely the Sixers just need to cut ties.
Yeah, I think it's best for everyone that the ties are cut. I mean, I know he's still in contract, but you can't mess around with people's mental health. Like if he's saying that it's not helped the situation, and I don't think it has helped the situation, because people are laughing at him that there's this 30-player list who the 76ers will accept for Ben Simmons. And it's kind of saying like, oh, you're worth this or you're not worth this. It's hard because you need to look after number one. It's just not happening in Philly. It's not whether it'll happen somewhere else. You never know. But it just seems to be dragging on and on. And I'm sick of hearing about it, really. But you know what? He needs to do what's best for him. But hopefully that is away from Toronto.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's been a few reports of teams that were interested. There were reports kicking around the other day that potentially the Sixers would make a run at Dame Lillard and offer up Ben Simmons, with Portland wanting to improve defensively. I mean, you're talking about a player, Ben Simmons, who was the runner-up defensive player of the year last year. Obviously, we know about his struggles with shooting, and improving his jumper, but certainly there's teams out there that would benefit from the type of perimeter defense that a player like Ben Simmons is going to give you. Yeah, the Lakers is a potential, a potential destination for sure. It just seems like the Lakers, the 76ers are holding out, like you talked about. They have an idea of the type of player they want, and Greg has returned, joined us. Get to a couple comments here, and then I'll bring a question to you, Greg.
We'll see.
Go. Hey, Tim and Rach. Hey, Reese. Yes, Miami's performing well, and it's down to a certain number 7. We know. And Reese getting involved with throwing out some hellos. But Greg, we were just talking about the Ben Simmons saga, talking about how it's dragged on, and brought the question to Rach in terms of, is it time for the Sixers just to cut loose? And the Sixers have been holding out for a certain type of player that they're looking for. They're looking for a difference maker for, they were talking over here earlier in the week about potentially making a move for Dame Lillard. Are the Sixers going to get the type of return that they're looking for? I mean, surely the relationship, number one, with the Sixers and Ben Simmons is so far gone that, that plays into it, because a team knows that, they've got leverage. They've got leverage to use with the relationship between player and team just not being, it's just gone. It's done. But also, when you look at his last performance and being called out by his teammates and called out by Doc Rivers, which certainly didn't make the situation any better. Are the Sixers going to get the type of return they're looking for him? Or do you think that, they're going to have to settle and maybe take back either younger players, picks, a combination of both, players maybe that aren't necessarily all-star caliber, but are difference makers in their own right? What are your thoughts on the Ben Simmons saga?
Yeah, I don't think they'll get someone like Lillard. I don't think they would get someone that's like the time to trade Simmons was draft night. The draft wasn't greatly deep, sort of after the top 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And that was the time to trade him when you could get a young star and or a potential young star, and you could have got picks as well. That would have been the time to do it. Not what's he now missed at 10, 11, 12 games. He's now missed.
Mm-hmm.
He's not trained. He's fallen out with his teammates. He's fallen out with his coach. His value is now back to where it was sort of post that playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're going to get someone like Damian Lillard for Ben Simmons. You'd maybe get someone like CJ McCollum if you wanted to trade with the Blazers. That would make the Blazers a better team.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know where he goes. I feel like he would just go. I thought he would just go to Minnesota because he's friends with Cat and D'Angelo Russell. But then, what did Minnesota have to give back to?
You're gonna have to part with one of those players, aren't you?
Exactly. You're not
based on what the Sixers want,
unless you give them 5 first-round picks.
Yeah,
and then
something ridiculous.
And then what? Philadelphia aren't going to enter a rebuild with a player like Joel Embiid.
Yeah,
still there. It's just really confusing. They should have traded him on draft night. They should have discussed with Embiid sort of the player that he wants to play with and a player they could help and build around. As if they want to be contenders, then that's what they need. And they're not going to be contenders with Simmons, and they're better just getting rid than having a player that's where he is and not playing. Yeah. It seems strange that it went on this long, especially when he wasn't going to play, because it didn't seem like he was ever going to play, and both sides knew that.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Embiid came out, it was like, I'm not here to babysit. So it sounds like Embiid knew that Simmons wasn't going to play. So why is Ben Simmons still there? It doesn't make sense. The whole organization just... They seem to just, if we just don't mention it for long enough, then one side will cave and none have. And now you're left in a stage where you've got a team with a player like Joel Embiid struggling as they are. And then they don't have the second star that they were meant to have with Ben Simmons. So I don't know. I can't see it going. It needs to be resolved soon, but I don't know where he goes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to follow that one all season, certainly dragging on and on and on. And you have to think that for both player and the Sixers, that it's better just to cut ties and move on. Reese, Greg he's looking very sharp. I think he's got a night out celebrating the Lakers' demise to this point. So, as I said, typical Clippers fan. Right. Well, from Ben Simmons... And on to, because Rach and I are Raps fans and Greg is a Clippers fan, the Raps and Clips. So, Rach, we're going to start with the Raps, obviously. Early returns for this season. I mean, you know, they clearly went with sort of a youth movement in getting rid of Kyle Lowry, going towards younger players, a lot of players that are long and athletic, sort of 6'9", can defend multiple positions, can switch screens very easily, try to get steals and deflections and try to get easy baskets and transition. But, when you look at what's taken place over, say, the last few games, obviously we've had our injuries with Siakam missing the start of the season. Fred VanVleet, players, you have players like VanVleet and Siakam that are, while you have these young players, those two players trying to carve out, they've become our leaders and trying to assume those leadership roles. VanVleet being missing a couple games through injury. Then, of course, now we've got OG with the hip flexor, OG and Anunoby that's going to be out for, what they're saying, what could be weeks. What are your sort of early takeaways from the Raptors so far, currently sitting 2 games below 500 in the midst of a 6-game West Coast trip?
I think you've got to think about the expectation for the Raptors as well when you're putting it into context. So obviously our expectation while we're going through this rebuild is not to win the championship. As much as we want it to be, it's not. You've got to realistically look at the picture of saying, look, we lost Kawhi, we've lost Lowry. Like, there's a lot of experienced heads in there that have just, departed. It's a very, very young team. And even the more experienced in the team, like you Freddie, Siakam and Anunoby as well, they're all relatively young still. Like, I know Siakam's 27, but it's still relatively young to
just
be
entering his prime, isn't he?
Exactly. So it's a very energetic team. I love the hustle. Like, we're a lot better to watch this year than last year. Last year, I thought it was so tedious to watch sometimes, and it was draining. But this year, I'm actually really enjoying watching us with, constantly never giving up. We've always got that fight, always going for it. We need to limit the turnovers a little bit, which is a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
That game where we led, I can't remember who we played against now, but we led all game, and then we lost it in the final 4 seconds, and they just took over by that 1 point. That
Cleveland game?
Yeah, I think it was Cleveland, yeah.
And a couple of games like that where we've led late and have just let it get away. But no, I think you touched on it. I think with a young group like the Raptors have, you're always going to have that. I agree with you that, I'm okay with this season being hovering around 500, maybe hovering around the play-in spots.
I just want to be better than last year, because last year was just shocking, awful.
The one thing, like, you're going to get with a young group, especially, with Scotty and Delano Banton and Malachi Flynn getting more minutes now. But with young players, you're going to see that in any sport, aren't you? Where you're going to have the consistency is going to be a problem, and you're going to have up and downs, and you're going to struggle at times. So, but I agree with you that they've been so fun to watch, and I like the competitiveness that this group brings. They're never going to take a night off. Obviously, you touched on the turnovers and some breakdowns defensively, which have been letting us down lately on the defensive end, which they need to work through. But Andy's in with a comment. Really like the look of Barnes and Banton. Great pickups. Svia's done well as well when needed. Would maybe like to see Flynn get a few more minutes. Yeah, agree with all that. Scotty Barnes. We'll talk about maybe Rookie of the Year on the next show and who we see as a contender for that. Delano Banton, Toronto's own from Rexdale. Tremendous energy. Svi has been terrific defensively. Great shooter.
I like him a lot.
Yeah, really good, really smart, really good basketball IQ. And there's certain players with the way the Raptors want to play, they want to get out in transition, and they want to have five players that can shoot, pass, and dribble. And it hasn't come off. Like you watch Precious Achua try to lead a break, and the decision making really needs to improve there. But a player like Svi is just so smart when he gets out in transition. But yeah, no, Malachi Flynn starting to get more minutes too. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on Dragic. Hope he'll probably be traded relatively soon, but Malachi Flynn's starting to get more minutes. But Greg, let's come to you tell us what's going on in the land of the Clippers. Obviously Kawhi Leonard still out. How have they done? Because sitting at 9-6, there was question marks maybe whether Paul George could hold the fort until the return of Kawhi. But they're in the mix. I mean, they're only 4 games back. They're in the playoff hunt at in 5th place. We know how it works, particularly in the NBA and playoff sports, is you just want to make the playoffs. And if they're going to give Kawhi as much time he needs to get back and bring him back to get him ready for the playoffs. So what's going on with the Clippers? Early doors.
Yeah, sort of exactly that. Yeah, sort of exactly that. I don't know. It was really weird. Like, I had no real optimism going into the season because Kawhi's out. I didn't think we were going to perform greatly well without him. I thought we'd struggle just to score enough points because all of our points last season come from Kawhi or Paul George. But Paul George has really, really taken a step. Like, he's back to playing how he was before we traded for him. And it's looking like sort of us offering what we did for him has been justified because obviously he signed the extension. He's now playing like how he is. And that's his team just now. And that's really, you're absolutely right. That's the goal. Get to the playoffs, get Kawhi back. And then who knows? Because once you've got a player like Kawhi there and back and healthy, if he's capable of anything, and that makes the team 100% more capable. And if that team, as young as it is, and inexperienced as it is sort of at that high level, if they can get to that playoffs and know that a player like Kawhi is coming back in, that will just give them that extra bit of belief. But it would be really good to see. Like, I've actually enjoyed watching Nicholas Batum. I never thought I'd enjoyed watching Nicholas Batum play basketball. He's been good fun to watch. Trey Mann's is always good fun to watch. As well, he's really improved. Reggie Jackson's even playing high level basketball. Actually, I didn't think it was possible. Like, everyone's just sort of taking a step forward, and I think the teams in general, I think you can see sort of this creation coming to life a bit more now. It's just a shame that sort of they had to take the step with Kawhi being not healthy and obviously out for as long as he is. But I think if we can get to the playoffs, get to the second round of the playoffs, and then just be like, Kawhi, just come back and save us, then we might be okay.
Certainly is in a league driven by stars and more star power, and you need big star players to win a championship in most cases. Let's be honest. I mean, I think the 04-05 Pistons were really the last team to win it without a true star on the team. It really is just about managing that load of those stars and getting them into the playoffs, isn't it? So, Greg, I know you got to shoot in a few minutes, so we will get to a couple questions here real quick. I think this is back to Reese. Is there possible this is in relation to Ben Simmons and the Sixers? Is there a possibility that he doesn't leave and the relationship repairs? No. At this point, Reese, I would say no. I think we'd all agree on that I think it's beyond repair. I can't see him.
It looks personal now, or it feels personal now. It's
it's
not just like team and you've cost. It looks like he's really upset people and things have probably been said and not said and things like that. I think it seems personal now.
We'll finish off with this one, Rach, you and me. How big of an impact do you think the level of inexperience can have on the Raptors this evening? This season? I think this season probably, considering the level of quality of your rivals at the moment. Yeah, I think it's going to impact us in the sense that, as I said, with a young team, you got young players that are trying to find their sort of learn how to play in the NBA and learn the NBA. It's a tough beast. So many games, back-to-backs that we're going to see up and downs. And then, like I said, you've got Siakam and Van Vliet trying to carve out leadership roles, which is, you have those two processes going on at the same time. It's going to be difficult. And you're right, Reese, like our rivals around us have strengthened. Washington's looking good. Greg touched on the Bulls. They're looking good. Brooklyn, even outside of Kyrie Irving is healthy. The Knicks got off to a good start. Yeah. The Sixers, when Embiid is healthy, are look like they were, I know they've struggled recently, but they look good. So I don't know what you think about that, Rach,
I think it's a learning process, really, because I'm not expecting much from, especially this season. Like, I would expect maybe play-ins. If we could get there, then I think I'd be happy. Keeping above 500, I think, would be great. Obviously, we're not there at the moment, but we've had, obviously, Pascal coming back, bedding himself back in, Freddie's groin injury, and obviously now OG, who has put massive numbers for us this season already. He's now injured, unfortunately. So we just need people to step up. But I also think it's hard with Siakam coming back in because we need... Obviously, it's not bad that Siakam's come back. Absolutely not. But we need to find a way for Pascal and Scotty to play together because they're very, very similar. And I don't know if you've noticed, but when Pascal's come back, Scotty's kind of dropped just a little bit.
He's regressed.
The heights that he was when Pascal was out. So I think we just need to find a way or Nick Nurse needs to find a way. I don't know why I'm saying that. I don't need to find a way. Nick Nurse needs to find a way how to play them two together and really utilize each other's strengths because they are a very, very similar player. I know Pascal's only just coming back now and he needs to kind of, bed himself in. He's no longer on a minutes restriction anymore. So he really needs to, kick on. And I have no doubt that Scotty Barnes is going to be absolutely insane. I love him. I love his energy. He's so fun to watch. He's a massive character as well. And I just think he's going to be a star. And I really like him.
He's what the Raptors needed as well.
Yeah.
Compared to sort of like if you look at the other ones, you could have drawn like either of the Jalen's. Like they're fine, but they're not like the outgoing character that
he just looks NBA ready.
He just doesn't seem to like. He doesn't have that care. Like he's just things go wrong. It's not the worst thing in the world.
He doesn't put his head down. They just pick it up.
He's just sort of playing with no fear, and it's sort of really what the Raptors needed because that team, obviously, what they've gone through, and then losing Lowry. Like Lowry's been that big voice in the changing room for years.
Yeah,
lose someone like that, you need someone to come in and be like, "Hey, doesn't matter. It's basketball. Like, no one cares. Like, it's not the end of the world." And he's great fun to watch.
Fantastic show. This is always thanks, Reese. It's good to be back, and I think that's a good way to to close off this episode. We're going to try to make it a regular show now, folks. Every Friday at 6 p.m. UK time, 1 p.m. In North America. Follow the Twitter account at Dimes and Buckets, and make sure you follow the Weekly Armchair Kick, or really Armchair Sports Talk. I knew I was going to do it once. Twitter page as well, which. Yeah, make sure you follow both of us for all the times, and you'll get notifications. Subscribe on YouTube and click the bell as to when we're going live. And we will see you folks next Friday. Have a good one.
Bye.